by multi-million-dollar corporations and multi-millionaires and billionaires.
Insane. Ben Carson. He's in the sunken place right there with Kanye. Maybe they should get married. Joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, the political director of Vote Vets. We're going to talk about Ronny Jackson. Will Fischer. Will, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm just fine. Pleasure to have you. So this is sort of a victory for Vote Vets. You all have been really outspoken about this.
Well, I think what we want to make sure people are aware of is that from the get-go, scandals of recent days aside, Ronny Jackson was categorically unqualified for this job to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, this is somebody who you're talking about who was never able to communicate how he was planning to run the second largest agency in the federal government, oversee a budget of nearly $200 billion, and a workforce of more than 330,000, and over 1,100 facilities around the country. Now, you also have this idea that you heard people say, oh, well, he's a doctor. That makes him the best person to run the VA. Well, you could say the same thing if somebody nominated an undertaker, because the Secretary of the VA also oversees all the federally managed veteran cemeteries. So there's a whole lot to the VA. There's a whole lot of moving pieces. And Ronny Jackson, his name is now out of consideration for being the next Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs, but it should have never been there to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it is presumptuous to think just because someone is a physician, without even getting into whether he's a good physician or a quack. But just, I mean, this is a government agency, and we know the challenges that it faces. That's not just for anybody just to roll out of one side of the bed and run the VA.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is leading this agency requires a tremendous amount of managerial experience. You're going to have to deal with labor relations. You're going to have to deal with multiple sites. You're going to have to do with multiple programs. And again, a staff that is larger than the constituent size of most mid-sized cities. Right? I mean, the mayor of Tampa, Florida, has fewer constituents than the VA secretary has employees.
Wow. So now, let me just take a look at something here. Is it true? And folks, we're streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I want you to take a look at this. I'm going to post it in just a moment. Is it? Is it? Well, this happened some time ago, but I'm still kind of curious about it. Trump, did Trump block you all on Twitter?
He did. About a year ago.
Oh my God, that is crazy.
Yeah, he loves veterans. If you listen to what he has to say, but the rhetoric doesn't always match up with the actions, and that's one example. But I would say that this whole VA debacle is yet another shining example that Donald Trump has absolutely no interest in veterans or military families beyond trying to use us as political props.
So now, so we tell the story. Why did he block you?
So Donald Trump was tweeting one morning, imagine that, about his vile and disgusting Muslim ban, and saying that Democrats were a threat to national security. And I happened to be the person who was on Twitter that morning on Vote Vets, and I saw this, and I pulled over and just sat there, and I said, you know what? Actually, you know what's a threat to national security? Your Muslim ban is a threat to our national security. The way you capriciously take to Twitter and try to launch us into nuclear war is a threat to our national security. Pulling out of the Paris climate deal, so on and so forth, and just laid out a few areas of the day that he was engaged in that we felt were and continue to feel are threats to our national security. And I don't know, I guess he was sitting there watching Fox and Friends in his bathrobe, didn't like what we had to and decided to block us on Twitter.
What was interesting, I mean, people respond to him all day. It's interesting that he would single you out, and he had to, I would even dare say he couldn't escape your name, Vote Vets. So he had to know he was blocking some veterans.
Yeah, he blocked us and the writer Stephen King on the same day, and then it sort of became a thing after that. This sort of blocked by Donald Trump.
But you're right. I mean, Twitter is one thing, but it's even more egregious that he tried to appoint someone so unqualified. Will Fischer, the political director at Vote Vets, folks, 1:15. Will, there's this perception and stereotype that all of you veterans are staunch Republican and you all support Donald Trump or whatever Republican president is in power. That's not true at all, is it?
No, absolutely not. And there are the veterans have political beliefs of all stripes. I would tell any of your listeners it would only take them about 30 seconds on either my Twitter handle or that of VoteVets to see that not all veterans support Donald Trump, and we're certainly not all conservatives. I would say that, in fact, the number of veterans who are opposing Donald Trump and are opposed to Donald Trump is growing every day, and that can be seen in the swelling ranks of VoteVets. We now have over 500,000 members, people who are engaged and people who are ready for the fight. Now, we are, of course, engaged in long-term legislative battles against Donald Trump and the Republican Party and their goals of things like trying to destroy and privatize our VA, which I hope we get into in a moment, or things like trying to gut Medicaid, which nearly 2 million veterans rely on, or trying to drive down wages for the working class while 1 in 5 veterans are in a minimum wage job, but also seizing those issues of the day and taking them head on and using our platform as veterans to communicate why, as veterans, where we are on those issues. So when Donald Trump comes out with ridiculous ideas like arming school teachers, we come out as veterans and talk about what a terrible idea that is. When Donald Trump tries to institute a Muslim ban, we come out as veterans and talk about what a terrible idea that is, an idea that not only runs counter to our values, but also puts our national security at risk. So because we are engaged in these fights, because we are meeting these fights head on, look, our ranks are continuing to grow, and veterans in chorus are coming together to say that Donald Trump is a threat to our national security and runs counter to the values that we believe in.
So talk to us, if you would, about privatization. That was part of his agenda, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Look, there is a campaign to destroy and privatize the VA. This is being led by Donald Trump, the Koch brothers, and their Veterans Front Group. They have an organization called the Concerned Veterans for America. And, yeah, I mean, look, who do they want to have as the VA secretary? Somebody who would take about bulldozing VA facilities 10 minutes after their Senate confirmation. So what we're going to do is do everything we can to lift up the voice of veterans in opposition to our VA healthcare system being privatized, because a privatized VA equals worse care for veterans. And I just want to take a quick moment for your listeners and fill them in. The VA is regularly reported out by independent agencies and groups like the RAND Corporation all over this country as providing equal or better health care than the private sector across the board. The VA is a world-class leader in specialized care, things related to traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, spinal cord injury, so on and so forth. And the VA also is specifically designed to meet the needs of veterans. And if Donald Trump and the Koch brothers and the Concerned Veterans for America get their way, all that goes out the window.
You mentioned also, too, the gun lobby is in favor. I'm looking at a tweet that was posted, I guess, just a few days ago. Actually, yesterday. Ronny Jackson is here to help privatize the VA. This is at Vote Vets on Twitter, folks, 20 minutes past the hour. Ronny Jackson is there to help privatize the VA. So there you go. We want to save our VA. The gun manufacturing lobby and Koch and Trump want to make it into a slush fund for the for-profit system until it dies. Why is the gun manufacturing lobby in this? What is the NRA's agenda?
Who's to say what the NRA agenda is? I mean, this is an organization that started to promote gun and firearms safety that has devolved into the house organ of the most radical of right-wing positions. And when I think they don't realize over at the NRA just what level, for the lack of a better term, fire they're playing with, because they have veterans within their membership who may very well support some of their positions as it relates to firearms, but are very much opposed to the idea of our VA healthcare system being destroyed and privatized. And you talk about it turning into a slush fund. It needs to be made crystal clear what the reasonings behind this campaign to destroy the VA are. Number one, profits. We know that, right? That's what these people get out of bed to do, to try to make money at all cost and off the backs of the working class. The VA, privatizing the VA, no different. They know that there is a tremendous amount of money to be made. There are 9 million veterans, including me, currently enrolled in the VA healthcare system. If all of a sudden every single one of those veterans were being, patted on the back, handed a voucher, and sent to the private sector, you're talking about a tremendous amount of money that, private healthcare providers, millionaires and billionaires, stand to make. Now, at the same time, I think it's important to lift up the fact that there is also an ideological fight going on, and the VA is at the center of that as well. And that is due to the fact that the VA is remarkably popular among the people who use it. The VA, it works well. And the VA is also a government-run single-provider healthcare system. And those who are the opponents of Medicare for All or single-payer healthcare or universal healthcare, they know that if they can destroy the VA, they can dash the hopes of there ever being universal healthcare realized in this country. So this is also a battle of what the future of government looks like as well.
But now, and Will Fischer with us, folks, political director at votevets.org, discussing Ronny Jackson's withdrawal. You mentioned a lot of the great services the VA provides. It's absolutely essential. But we do have to acknowledge that it has not of late been run all that well, correct?
Well, look, right now you have a situation where you have people inside the VA, political appointees of Donald Trump, who are there to try to undermine the very institution for which they work. People who are from the Concerned Veterans for America, who are now inside the system, trying to push out career staff, replace all of the top-level positions with political appointees who are dead set on trying to destroy the VA, the very institution, again, to which they are appointed to make work.
Yeah. So what do you think happens next? I mean, Trump is going to obviously have to nominate someone else.
Hell, he's liable to nominate Kanye, right?
Right. Right. Make Kanye the director of the wouldn't that be something? Secretary of the VA. But is there an ideal candidate for veterans right now?
So I think that it's important for people to, first off, Donald Trump needs to do a better job of listening to veterans and showing any interest in the opinions of veterans outside of the small circle of those he keeps around him. And you're going to see what the ideal candidate looks like is somebody who has the ability to manage the second largest agency in the federal government, somebody who has sat down and worked on labor relations, somebody who has managed a very large staff, a very large institution. Like I said earlier, I mean, there are mid-sized city mayors who have jobs that are less complex than being the Secretary of the VA. So what we're going to do is continue to monitor this. I mean, obviously he's going to be nominating someone. It was rumored at one point that he was going to nominate a fellow named Pete Hegseth, who is a Fox and Friends host and who has been the drum major for the campaign to destroy and privatize the VA for years now. He was actually the original executive director of that organization I mentioned earlier, the Concerned Veterans for America.
You all had tweeted also. Sam retweeted Sam Stein's tweet, which just basically lays out some of the behavior of Ronny Jackson. But it sounds like Will Fisher with us, folks. It sounds as if you all were opposed to Ronny Jackson from the get-go because he was just simply unqualified.
Well, at the beginning, we did not take a position. We said we want to know where is Dr. Jackson on the issue of VA privatization, and what qualifications does he have that leads him to believe that he is able to take on this job. Now, we were communicating that very loudly to our friends on the Hill, in the media, and throughout our membership. And then, as it became more and more apparent that Dr. Jackson was both unqualified and unfit to be the next Secretary of Veterans Affairs, we began to communicate, yes, that there was absolutely no reason for him to continue his pursuit of being the next VA Secretary. And what we also wanted to take the time to communicate was that his name should have never been considered to begin with. And Donald Trump nominated Ronny Jackson to be the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs because Ronny Jackson stood up at a press conference and said that Donald Trump would live to be 200 years old and had a clean bill of health and all of that nonsense. That's why Ronny Jackson was nominated.
Yeah. Trump has appeared on Fox and Friends just this morning, and we have his reaction. We're going to air this. Just happened moments ago, and get your immediate reaction to this. Trump's response to Ronny Jackson's withdrawal. Let's take a listen.
When it comes to Ronny Jackson, the word came out from John Roberts, now confirmed, that he is no longer going to be a candidate to lead the VA. In his statement is this: the allegations against me are completely false and fabricated. If they had any merit, I would not have been selected, promoted, and trusted to serve in such a sensitive and important role as physician to 3 presidents over 12 years. In my role as a doctor, I have tirelessly worked to provide excellent care for all my patients. In doing so, I have always adhered to the highest ethical standards. Last night, the report was you had a huddle. Is that what you decided last night? Is that what all of you decided?
Well, I even told them a day or two ago. I saw where this was going. And, they're very upset because Mike Pompeo, who was, again, first in his class at West Point, top in his class at Harvard Law School, a brilliant guy, a great guy, and somebody I get along with very well. Mike got through, and they thought they had him stopped. The Democrats are obstructionists. It's horrible what they're doing. They're not approving people. They're taking them out to the maximum 30 hours. That's a lot of time, 30 hours, to interview people that are going to be approved. I mean, they go 30 hours and then people all vote. And it's a disgrace. In fact, they had a report the other day that at this rate, it'll be 9 years before they're allowed to come into government. So you have people that have given up everything. They've given up their jobs, top-line people, brilliant people. They want to come in and help us in government. And Chuck Schumer and the group take, years to approve them, years. We have judges that are waiting, top-of-the-line people, the best people in our country. And by the way, they're going to be approved, but they take them out till the very, very end. And they said over 9 years before they get approved.
But Mr. President,
every little trick in the book.
Mitch McConnell could keep them 7 days a week until they reach their 30 hours and make them, these men and women, stay until this gets done. Why won't he do that?
Well, he should be doing that, and I think he will be doing that, and he should be doing that. Honestly, the Republicans, look, we have some absolute warriors. We have, when I just watched your show, Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows and Matt Gaetz and DeSantis and so many, Corey Lewandowski. We have Diamond and Silk are warriors, by the way. How about Diamond and Silk? They become amazing. That started off like somebody was talking about them on the Internet. There were these 2 women, these 2 beautiful, wonderful women. And I said, well, let me check it out. It took me about 2 seconds to say stardom. It's incredible. So Diamond and Silk, these are all warriors. We have great people in the Republican Party. And I think that in one way it's showing how bad, how obstructionist these Democrats are. It's a disgrace what's happening.
All right, Ronny Jackson is Will Fisher is going to react to what we just heard. This moments ago, the president on Fox and Friends He's asked about Ronny Jackson, and he talks about Diamond and Silk.
I mean, it sounded like Donald Trump put that statement together with refrigerator magnets. I mean, I don't know what was going on. That was just a word salad. I mean, he's talking about Mike Pompeo over here. Mike Pompeo, he's a great guy.
Right.
Mike Pompeo is pro-torture. Mike Pompeo is a warmonger. Mike Pompeo is anti-LGBTQ and women's reproductive freedom. And then Donald Trump's going to be like, oh, Mike Pompeo, he's a great guy. You know, I'm not surprised Donald Trump thinks Mike Pompeo is a great guy. But how he believes Mike Pompeo is the reason why Ronny Jackson is somehow withdrawing his name. Look, you got to go into the mind of Donald Trump to figure out how he puts that together. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Ronny Jackson was unfit and unqualified to be the next Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and he no longer appropriately is being considered for that position.
Lastly, just before we go, you all also acknowledged his abuse of prescription medicines in terms of giving them out to people. And you also point out, you know, with so many veterans dealing with issues, including addiction issues, that too was highly inappropriate, wasn't it?
Absolutely. You know, there are, I think the number is 1 in 10 veterans are dealing with opioid issues. This is an issue we're seeing across the country, and the veteran community is certainly not immune to that. And then we have a guy who goes by the name of Candyman because he is so, you know, freewheeling in his distribution of prescription medication. Look, yeah, Ronny Jackson, again, unfit, unqualified.
1 in 10 Iraq and Afghanistan veterans suffers from addiction issues. Someone who hands out opioids in the way alleged here simply is the wrong person to tackle that issue. If this is true, Dr. Jackson must remove his name from consideration. A tweet from @VoteVets. His name has been removed finally and thankfully. We've been talking with the political director of VoteVets.org. Follow them on Twitter at @VoteVets. Will, great to meet you, and we should keep in touch under more positive and edifying circumstances. Anything our broadcast can do to help support the important work you do, because you know I frankly think that our veterans don't get enough love. You all sacrifice and risk your lives for all the rest of us, and you all should be taken care of first and foremost, and I mean that sincerely. So anything I can do using this broadcast or these airwaves, this medium, to be supportive of your work, please don't hesitate to ask, okay?
Thank you so much. And look, I just hope all your listeners walk away understanding one thing, and that is the simple fact that there is not an issue being debated in this country, whether it's on Capitol Hill or at a city council, that does not impact veterans. Veterans are part of society just like anyone else. So when somebody is attacking the working class, they're attacking veterans because veterans, look, there's a veteran class in this country that's fundamentally part of the working class.
That's right.
And when somebody is attacking, you know, the healthcare systems in this country, they're attacking veterans because veterans rely on those healthcare systems. There is, again, not an issue that doesn't affect veterans, and what we always want to do, and certainly thank your program for allowing us to do so, is to lift up the voice of our members of veterans all across this country in communicating how the issues of the day affect veterans and military families. And despite somebody like Donald Trump and some others who love to wrap themselves in the flag and talk about how much they love veterans, well, you know, their work and their record doesn't always match that rhetoric, and we want to make sure people are aware of that.
No, it certainly doesn't. Will Fischer, political director at VoteVets.org. Will, take care, buddy. We'll talk again for sure.
Thank y'all so much. Take care.
All right, take care now. Sirius XM Progress 127, Resistance Radio. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. This is MIP.
Fuck Donald Trump.